In this video, I want to do two things really. One is to share an account of how I became really interested in looking at the flower of life, which is an image I'd been familiar with for I don't know how many years, but hadn't really paid a great deal of attention to, if I'm honest. And the second is, through the sharing of this, there's something important for me in being able to bring a sense of playfulness to looking at things when really thinking about how they might be useful to me, or to us. Okay, so here we go, flower of life. Here is an image of the flower of life. Very straightforward, a very particular number of circles organised in a very particular way. You've probably seen it loads of times. Here's a coloured inversion, and here's another way of drawing the flower of life. Now, as I've just said, I'd seen it many times, never really thought much about it. I'd probably seen it too often, really. I'd seen it on jewellery, in various texts. So often, I can't even remember, to be honest. But it got to the point where I'd stopped seeing it. And then I chose an oracle card from my Isis oracle deck by Alana Fairchild. I love Alana Fairchild's oracle decks, and this is one of them that I really like. And I ended up choosing the Flower of Life card. Now, with her, if you don't already know them, with her decks, with the cards for each, with each of the cards in her decks, I'll get it right eventually, there's quite a lot of text. And I'm not going to share all of it here, but I am going to share the bit that got me interested in looking at this image above and beyond what else was being imparted in the rest of the text. So here we go. What she says is, the flower of life holds the secrets to allowing creative change and transformation of circumstances, manifestation and healing in the easiest and most enjoyable ways possible. That bit really appealed to me. Most enjoyable ways. The flower of life contains repetitive patterns, each interlacing and interrelating to the other, like the holograph that contains the whole within each part. In this way, all that is required to tap into one part, one element, one thought, or one behaviour that relates to your desired creative outcome and integrate it into your life. All the rest will follow through natural connection. Now that in itself got me looking at the image in a different way. I'm thinking, yeah, of course I knew this, but I'd never really looked at it. It isn't just an image in itself, but it is a repetitive pattern in which, of course, one element is of one part of the pattern is also an element of another part of the pattern, and the focus, the way you put your focus, could be anywhere in it, really. So I thought, yeah, there's something to it. So one of the things I started to do was to draw the flower of life. I had to look up how to do it, I have to admit, and I also have to admit that though I got out a pencil and a compass, I ended up doing it on computer because takes a while. And what I also have to admit is that I veered between quite enjoying it and getting into a sort of quite meditative state doing it, and also feeling quite frustrated and impatient. So that was interesting in itself. And yeah, what I ended up with were the images that I shared with you in the beginning, and I started playing with different ways of drawing it. And I also researched it on the internet, so it wasn't a massively in-depth research, but I do have immense respect for the wealth of information that's out there, for the people who've really studied this and other examples of sacred geometry, and how much reverence they are held in all these various images and the meanings that are given to them. I enjoyed it, but it all remained quite head-based. It sort of felt like an exploration of information, which was indeed enjoyable in itself. But then I also started to come across contradictions, like that the flower of life contains within it all other sacred geometrical images, and somebody else was saying, no, it's the flower of life that is contained within other images, and I suppose, well, they could both be true. And then I did come across this, and it's not just one person or one place that's saying this, which indicated that the belief that the flower of life, as we are most familiar with, is actually a sort of subverted image, and is, as they call it here, a flower of death and limitation, and that the real flower of life is the one shown on the left, the crystal lotus flower of life. And I started to look into that a little bit more, and I thought, well, that's interesting too. And, well, I don't know. Is that true? Isn't it true? And that got me to a place where I thought, right, I've enjoyed this to a point, but nothing of what I've come across, including where people have spoken about what to do with the flower of life, like sort of put it in places, wear it, use it as a focus of meditation. None of it really seemed to, well, it didn't even not seem to grasp me. It didn't get my interest. It didn't get me excited. So I went back to that feeling that I got when I first read the text that went with that card from Alana Fairchild's Isis Oracle deck. And I thought, okay, what was it about that was actually engaging and exciting? So I decided to bring a sense of playfulness into what I was doing. I thought, okay, I have been holding the sort of the wisdom that other people have been generous enough to share on the internet, holding it in a lot of reverence and thinking, yes, I must learn this, I must understand it. And I've got to the point where I'm going, well, maybe I don't want to understand it any more than I do at this point, for now anyway, and go back to the image itself and go, okay, how do I feel about it? How can I go further into that feeling that I started to get with the card? So I sort of drew it again and thought, okay, here we have the flower of life. And I owned at that point the fact that I don't think I really like it very much. I don't feel a very strong draw to this image. And when I thought about why, I thought, well, it's because it's it stops. It feels as though it's constrained. And although some versions of it, not all versions, are quite pretty, it doesn't pull me in. If I go back to this sense of how everything is connected to everything else, which isn't exactly what Alana Fairchild said in her in the text for that card, but it sort of seemed to implicate it. I thought, let's just play with this image. So I thought, okay, let's draw more circles. Let's sort of expand it from outside this boundary that it tends to come with. And let's lose the circle. And now that we've done that, and we've actually got an image where there is no edge, it goes beyond the edges of the screen here or the paper or wherever it's on, and we're looking at something that is representing infinity. And while we're at it, even though with most images, especially images that have some kind of symmetry, we're drawn to focus on the middle. Well, we don't have to, do we? We could focus anywhere. The focal point could be anywhere within this drawing. And why should there only be one? And this started to be fun. I'm like, let's just illuminate everything. And so we've got this image which is kind of different. And it then reminded me, I was like, what does this look like to me? And I'm like, oh my God, it's Indra's Net. And this is where playfulness comes in again, because Indras Net was something I was introduced to decades ago. It was while I was at university. I took an elective course in Buddhism, which I enjoyed very much. And in that course, I was introduced to the concept of Indras Net, which is often, if you look it up, depicted as a spider web with dewdrops in it. Beautiful image, so I thought I'd share that. And here is a description of Indras Net. Far away in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer in such a manner that it stretches out indefinitely in all directions. In accordance with the extravagant tastes of deities, the artificer has hung a single glittering jewel at the net's every node, and since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. If we now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface there are reflected all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is infinite. A lot of emphasis on infinity, right? And this is where I think it gets fun. Like, not only are we looking at something which is certainly to my human mind beyond comprehension. I don't think it is truly possible to comprehend as a human being infinity. So that's in the first instance, the sense of this net stretching outwards, but then also the reflections which are unending. But even though it's such an enormous concept, there's also a structure that we can, I believe, get hold of. There is a sense of, this does make sense. This is a way, and this is where I was getting to, that all these images or structures or constructs are ways of getting concepts that are, at the end of the day, beyond human understanding, into ways that we can begin to get a sense of them, possibly work with them. And so exciting. And then what do we do with that? And then of course there's also the link there with quantum physics and quantum entanglement, how potentially, and I know quantum physicists will argue this because there's that aspect of things needing to be observed, but this sense of a molecule here, within my body, say, could be entangled with a molecule at the edge of the universe, and that a change in one could instantaneously cause a change in the other. And Indras Net, we can really think, yes, if we enter into this as a possible, potential, temporary way of viewing the world, we can have a lot of fun. And when I say fun, I mean serious fun, productive and wonderful fun with it. So I started to have some fun by trying to draw it out in a way that went beyond the 2D, and ends up being quite messy. So I've ended up with an image like that, which is just a way to conceptualize how this interconnectedness might look. So where does that leave us? This leaves me in a place of there's a beginning of being able to really feel this sense of interconnectedness. We're not like being in some giant soup, but that yes, there is a separateness to everything, and yet there is on many different levels. So on one level, the human being level, there is a part of me reflected in you and in every other human being, and likewise there's a part of you reflected within me, and within me is also reflected aspects of all other human beings. And you can take that wider and go across all timelines, dimensions, and this is where you can arbitrarily put a boundary depending on how you want to play with this in any given moment. Another way of looking at it, say, is on a much smaller level, on a molecular level. And one of the things that I'm working on now is how to use this imagery or this concept in creating a particular kind of healing meditation. So back to so that's that on a molecular level, and going back to the human level, it can give us a way to really explore, well, in what ways am I connected to you and to others, to people I don't know really? And how is it, what happens when an aspect of me is reflected in you and then is reflected back um, to me? So I'm re-reflecting myself as reflected by you, and so on and so forth ad infinitum. What does that feel like? What does that mean? And this can help us access ways of really getting a sense of, well, what is me? Which bit is me? Which bit is a reflection of me? And what that I experience might actually be a reflection of you, or even of somebody that I don't know. And these can be things that we might give value labels to, like wonderful or awful, or neither. They could just be neutral. And what do we do with that? Which are the bits that we want to say continuing with this sort of idea of a diamond or a jewel? Which bits do we want to polish? Which bits do we want to change? And then there's a beauty to it, because if we change something within ourselves, and again the link with quantum entanglement, then that within this construct, within this idea, means that it changes everything else within every other being. And of course, I'm just talking about humans at the moment, but it doesn't have to be just humans, does it? It can be within our environment. Likewise, if we accept certain things or focus on certain things that we're experiencing in our outward worlds, they may be reflections of us, they may not be, but that as the reflection goes back and forth, whatever we're focusing on, whatever we're giving energy to, whatever we're feeding, whatever we're transmuting, has an effect on us and has an effect on everything around us. And that's where I think we can really feel into these kind of concepts and use them in ways that are creative, really powerful, and fun. So anyway, that's my story. That's where I've ended up, and I will be sharing the healing meditation I was talking about, and there's another one I'm working on, just about working with this sense of interconnectedness. So separate and yet connected, and what we can do with that, and how we can sit within that concept and move with it. Anyway, hope you've got something out of this. If you have comments, I would love to see them. And thank you for listening. Bye.